Could Xbox be releasing an Xbox handheld? Valve urges gamers to not upgrade their SSD. We got a whistleblower report about Cyberpunk 2077 and some of the issues with the quality assurance team that tested out the game. And Kojima talks about a game that he was potentially going to make until he watched a TV show. All right, yesterday we got some exclusive breaking speculation for Xbox and potentially the Xbox handheld. Now, this is something I think a lot of people have wanted, have been speculating about, have been saying it could be a pretty good idea for Xbox to get into the handheld game right now with just all of the advantages Xbox has with their ecosystem, with Xbox Cloud Gaming, with trying to get into markets like Japan. And Jez Corden on the Iron Lords podcast speculatively talked about this, which has people thinking, hey, maybe an Xbox handheld could be on the way. So here is what he said.
They're doing it off of the words of Jez. It's all good. Thank you, Jez. Thank you, Jez.
The thing, what happens when, like, you know, we talk about people saying, oh, can you count the sales separately? Can you count the sales separately? What about when they released the Xbox handheld in Japan, man?
Oh, exclusive!
Count that separately?
Wait, Jez, are you exclusive?
So obviously they're just joking around. They're talking about an Xbox handheld potentially coming out in Japan because of right now what's going on with the sales in Japan and how there has been 2 weeks so far that the Xbox has outsold the PlayStation 5. And this is something we have talked about multiple times on this channel in terms of sales, is that Xbox is doing extremely well. I mean, people are going out there, they're wanting the console. The Xbox Series S has been an incredible just business decision for Xbox to continuously have hardware out there for people to be able to purchase when they walk into a store, especially with the supply constraints with the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. But the supply constraints are definitely not the only reason why people are buying consoles, specifically in Japan. When you think about the size of the Series S, the games that are available on Xbox Game Pass, stuff like Persona coming over to the service, and when the Xbox Series X and Series S are available, both those consoles are flying off the shelf there. And the PS5 is going to have to think and do something going forward because they're really having to compete with that dual SKU strategy that Xbox has for this entire generation. We know PlayStation has talked about having to create more PS4s until 2022 and beyond in order to kind of compete and to get over that hump with the chip shortage and the supply constraints. But when it comes to Japan specifically, I think if Xbox were to release a handheld device that specifically is for the Xbox ecosystem and for Game Pass, and if they continue to get games like Persona into Xbox Game Pass, I honestly think this would be a great idea, not in Japan, but also in the rest of the world, in the West and everything. People will be buying this up right away. I mean, I have my Steam Deck, which I absolutely love, but I primarily use Xbox Game Pass on it, whether that is through xCloud or whether that is through, I've installed Windows, so whether that is through just natively using the Xbox app and using Game Pass via that through my Steam Deck. So I think this would be something people want. I think it would be a good idea with their ecosystem, the way that you can play their games, the way that you can access them all, and the way that they just work and run very well on something like the Steam Deck. I think now is the time for Xbox to consider this. I know that they've gone with the cloud gaming with your phone, so that may be a deterrent for them because they say, hey, well, you can just use your phone as a mobile device. But if you're able to download games natively and take that with you on the go, not have to worry about any sort of internet connection, that will be a big step up in terms of the quality of games when you're outside of your house, outside of playing it on a console. So the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, we all remember that Kojima came on and officially announced that he is partnering with Xbox to make an exclusive cloud-based game for the Xbox ecosystem, for the Xbox Series X and S. He pretty much just came on and said, hey, I'm making a game for Xbox, and then left. Give us absolutely no information as to what this game was going to be, but this was something that was in speculation for a year and a half. We had seen multiple reports coming out that Kojima was in talks with Xbox. Nobody knew if the deal was closed yet, but he wanted to utilize the cloud technology in order to be able to really create his massive vision for the next game that he wanted to make. Well, one of the games that he had an idea for, but he has thrown out now, which I think would have been really cool if he went ahead with something like this, was a game similar to the TV show The Boys. So he says here, The Boys, which I quit after 3 episodes of season 1. I thought I'd watch the rest of the show. Actually, I watched a few episodes that were delivered at the time when I was about to start a project that I had been warming up for a long time and put it on hold because the concept was similar. Different settings and tricks, a buddy male-female thing with a special detective squad facing off against legendary heroes behind the scenes. I was thinking of Mads as the lead. So now we know at least one type of game that we aren't going to be getting from Kojima, and it is a boys style game, which probably would have been a massive hit if he were to actually work on and release a game similar to the style, with just how popular the TV show is and honestly how good the TV show is. And I think it would be a really interesting style of game if you were playing as these kind of anti-heroes, superheroes, the villains that everybody thinks is the superhero, and you're kind of going around and trying to evade some FBI squad or something trying to take you down and stop you. I think there's a lot of things people could make out of that, just a really cool open world, especially if they had similar powers to the characters within the boys. We still don't know what Kojima is working on. We've seen the stuff with Overdose, that leak that came out where it was just a quick trailer of potentially one of the upcoming Kojima games he's working on. We know he's working on multiple different projects, with working on something with PlayStation, I'm assuming, working on something with Xbox, and maybe even working on a third game, who knows. And then you think back to the PT demo that he had released before he had left Konami, and maybe he will revitalize something like that. But I feel like with the utilization of cloud technology, Kojima wants to use it to really get deeper into the AI of things and to get really smart NPCs and potentially just have just this massive, very realistic style of world similar to the things that we see on Microsoft Flight Simulator, which directly uses that cloud technology in order to give us literally lifelike looking graphics in that game. So I feel like that's why he wants to utilize that technology more so than anything else. And I talked about this on the Plumecast as well this week, was the article that Jess Corden wrote for Windows Central Gaming about machine learning and AI, and how huge that's going to be when developers are able to utilize this technology just to make the world more living and the NPCs within the game more lifelike and realistic. And I'm sure Kojima has been thinking about that as well before jumping into that partnership with Xbox and the things that he'll be able to do with their technology. So it'll be very interesting to see what Kojima is working on. For me personally, I am excited to see what the project is. I'm not the biggest Kojima fan in the world by any means. I like Metal Gear. I absolutely disliked and hated Death Stranding. I've said that multiple times on this channel. So I hope we get something that's kind of more like the Metal Gear style of game, has a bit more, I say, engaging gameplay overall compared to Death Stranding. But we'll have to wait and see what comes out of everything. All right, moving over here to some Steam Deck news that I think is pretty important, especially if you're considering modding your Steam Deck with a larger M.2 drive. So there is this tweet going around here for this person on Twitter. Belly Jelly modded their Steam Deck, and they say here the PCB appears to work fairly well for adapting a 2242 M.2 to the Steam Deck. It doesn't collide with anything on the motherboard or put any extra strain on any cables. However, it does make the heat spreader bow a tiny bit, the backplate reassembled without issue. And then they go down here, they boot up their Steam Deck, Steam OS and everything, and everything seems to be working fine with this 2242 SSD. Now, Steam saw this, and in fact, in particular, this person here saw it, Lawrence Yang, who is the design and does many other things at Valve Software, and replied saying, "Hi, please don't do this. The charger IC gets very hot and nearby thermal pads should not be moved. In addition, most 2242 M.2 drives draw more power and get hotter than what the deck is designed for. This mod may appear to work, but will significantly shorten the life of the deck." And he sees here that many of the big outlets are reporting it. You have PC Gamer here reporting it. You also had GameSpot reporting it, and he's replying to all of those articles. And the issue is, you look at the M.2 drives here, you have the different sizes of the M.2 drives. You got the 2230, which is the one that's used within the Steam Deck. Then you got the 2242, and then the other big ones there. And obviously, everything, all of these are going to work, or at least these two are going to work within the Steam Deck, because it's pretty much just a PC. Well, it is just a PC in the shell of the Steam Deck, and it's completely moddable. In fact, Steam and Valve, they put out a video before the Steam Deck was released showing you how to take it apart and giving you all the specs and everything to be able to upgrade the Steam Deck essentially if you want to. But this is something that you're not going to want to do if you want to keep the longevity and lifespan of your Steam Deck. I mean, the battery life right now isn't very good, and something like this will probably reduce that battery life to almost nothing, especially if it's continuously getting hot and putting more strain on the system. So if you are planning on upgrading your M.2 SSD in your Steam Deck, make sure to just upgrade it with a 2230 drive or something else that is more compatible with the Steam Deck and not the 2242 drive. And finally, let's talk about this. Cyberpunk 2077. There is a new report about the QA company and how they lied to CD Projekt Red, which led to the state that Cyberpunk 2077 releasing, or at least partially led to the state of the game when it first came out. So if you remember with Cyberpunk 2077, they kept delaying it. And one of the main things that they lied about that people were upset about when Cyberpunk 2077 launched was just the sheer amount of bugs that were in the game and how the game just pretty much did not function on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. And that was something that they promised would be working. You'd be able to play this game on the last generation of consoles. That obviously really held back the game from releasing on time, and just in the overall development of the game, it's something that probably really led to the demise of Cyberpunk 2077, at least at the launch of the game. But now we have this report here about the QA testing and just some of the stuff that they did to contribute to Cyberpunk 2077 and the buggy launch of the game. So this comes via the YouTuber Upper Echelon Gamers, who was sent a 72-page document via a whistleblower outlining the QA testing issues. Now, Cyberpunk and CDPR, they hired Quantic Labs. It's a QA company who did a lot of testing on Cyberpunk 2077. And within that 72-page document, it's a lot of information. I believe it is available if you want to go check it out. But in that document, they give you names, they give you a bunch of stuff about what went on. And here are the main points of what they say. They say your Quantic Lab over-exaggerated the size of the team working on Cyberpunk 2077 in order to keep the contract. They said that the team was made up of senior staff, but it was instead juniors with under 6 months of experience in quality assurance. And Quantic Lab had a daily quota of reported bugs, which led to CDPR getting thousands of relatively pointless bug reports from the testers, which took up a lot of time and caused game-breaking issues to not be found or prioritized. Now, when you look up Quantic Lab, you can see here, this is their website, and here are some of the games that they have worked on. They previously worked on The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt with CDPR, so it was definitely a relationship between CDPR and Quantic Lab that they had before, that they had nurtured, and that's probably why they went back to them. But the report here claiming all the stuff that they lied about definitely would have contributed to the overall bad release of Cyberpunk 2077, particularly when you see things here where they said they took up a lot of time for testers from the reports, that they were looking at bugs that they pretty much had made up. And some of the stuff in Cyberpunk 2077, some of the videos that came out in terms of game-breaking bugs are absolutely atrocious. And you would think to yourself, how could CDPR have missed this? Especially, I mean, CDPR isn't a small developer. They've gotten so much bigger, especially after the rise in the Witcher series. They still made a ton of money off Cyberpunk 2077, but how could a company like that, with the types of games that they have made in the past, which weren't nearly as buggy, how could they have missed these styles of big bugs? And this would make a lot of sense if they're going over this daily quota of reported bugs that Quantic Lab had sent to them, that were really minor bugs that didn't really affect the game, or that they were just made up. It takes away a lot of time from actually focusing on the bad things that were in the game that were breaking the game. Now, this isn't to say that CDPR isn't at fault. I mean, it's still their game. It's still their job to make sure that the game comes out and it isn't as buggy as it was before. But this is stuff that we heard about previously, and now it seemingly is confirmed from this whistleblower report, the 72-page report. If it is 100% true, I mean, it could all be made up, but if it is true as to why Cyberpunk 2077 is the way it is, it just continues to go down the line of just the debacle of a game this was. And Cyberpunk 2077 could have been that game, could have been a generational game. People were extremely excited for it. It would have been a game people talked about for years and years to come. And now, because of what happened with the release, it won't be. So that's a shame in itself. And that's something when you think about Starfield, that they have that ability to be a generational game, to be a game like they had with Skyrim, that people are going to continue to talk about and play for decades to come. So they got to make sure that they don't have stuff like this happening to them. And then when they release Starfield, that it is in good quality and doesn't have game-breaking bugs like Cyberpunk did. That's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on all of this stuff. Do you want an Xbox handheld? What do you think about the Cyberpunk 2077 situation and the report from the whistleblower about the QA testers? What do you want to see from Kojima? What game do you want to see him make for Xbox? And what are your thoughts on the Steam Deck and the SSD situation here with people upgrading it with that bigger SSD? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. And I'll catch you in the next video.
We'll be right back.